Hello guys, welcome to the second part of this series. In the previous video we have seen how we have set up the basic initial server. So now in this video is going to be very interesting because we are going to set up the authentication system from scratch. We are going to use JSON Web Token. So we have to install a dependency called JSON Web Token. So just go to your server folder and write there yarn add JSON Web Token. So this will install JSON Web Token in our dependencies, and I have also started my server. So let me open my Firefox. So let's start by creating our user model first. So we'll go to the model folder and I will create here user.js file. So firstly we have to define our user schema. So I'll write here, firstly I will require our Mongoose package, then I'll define my user schema, and in the user schema we will have some fields like name, and this is going to be a type of string. Similarly this is going to be a required field, and you can pass here directly true or in the form of array true and with a message. So I'll provide here message as well. So I'll write here if there is no name, like name is required. Similarly we'll have email. This is also going to be a type of string, and this is also going to be a required field, and I also write here email is required. Similarly we'll have here a password, and this is also going to be a type of string, and this is also a required field. So I'll write here true and password is required. So we have defined our user schema. Now let's create here a model. So I'll write here user is equal to new mongoose dot model and give it here argument of in singular form. Later on it will convert into plural form when it will make the collection, and we are going to provide here our user schema field. And in order to use in various places, in order to use this model we have to firstly export it. So I'll write here model.exports is equal to user. Now that we have defined our user model, let's create our route. So I'll write here auth.js. We'll define here auth.js. So we'll have here a router, and in order to use this router I'm going to export this out, and I am going to integrate it here. So I'll write here app.use/api/ and then we are going to require our router from the routes directory. So this is the API and this is the endpoint, and we are going to define every route here. So I don't think we need that forward /. Now let's define here our routes. So we'll have here router dot route router dot post, and we'll have here login, and we'll also have register, and this is going to be of async function. We'll have a request responses, and we'll have a try catch because we are going to define here asynchronous tasks, and if there will be any error we're simply going to log them out, and we'll return the error with a status of 500, and it will have JSON of error to be of error dot message. Now let's integrate our user model. So we have required our user model here. So we have to firstly get two fields. So we need three fields, right? Name, email, and then password from our body. And if there will be any of the missing fields, we are simply going to send the user a error message that all the fields are required, and we are going to define the status of 400 because 400 is used as bad user input. So we'll give them response of user of uh, please enter all the required field. Similarly, we are also going to check if the email is valid or not. So you can actually use the regex for that. So I'll add a regex for JavaScript email validation. So this will give us a regex. So as you can see, this is the regex for the email validation. I am going to just copy this and I will paste it here. I'll add here const email reg, and this is a regex, and we are going to test it out. So I'll add here if email reg dot test with the email, and if these tests fail, we are simply going to return status of 400 with the JSON format of error please enter a valid email address. Similarly, we are also going to check the email length. So let me just comment it out. Check all the missing fields. Similarly, I'll add an email validation, and then we are going to now validate our password. Validation of password. So I'll write here if password dot length if it is shorter than 6 character, if it is less than 6 character, we are just simply going to return the same response. res.json of status 400 with the JSON response of error password must be at least 6 character long. So we are going to make this equal to 6, at least 6 characters long. Now we have validated our email password. Now it's time for us to validate our name. So we'll have some certain limitations for the name length. So I'll add here name validation. You can actually also use a library called Joy, because this is a very tedious task, as you can see, for the validation, but for the sake of complexity I am not using that. So I'll add here const if name dot length is equal to, or it's not equal to, it is greater than let's suppose 15 characters, or let's just go at least for max 25. New is just simply going to return status of 400 with a JSON response of error that name can only be less than 25 characters. So as you can see, we have validated all our fields. Now it's time for us to create our model. So I'll write here const new user is equal to new user. Similarly, we are going to provide here the name, email, and then password. But do you know there is a catch here? Because if you define here password, it is going to simply save in the plain text format. So we don't want our password to be plain text format, because later on, if by any chance our database breach occurred in the database, then the hacker can clearly see the password in plain text format. So we are going to use a library called bcrypt.js for the hashing the password. So I'll add here yarn add bcrypt. So this will give us a library to hash the password. So if you don't know what is a hash, it is basically a mathematical algorithm which converts a normal plain text into gibberish one, which is human inunderstandable. So basically it takes a lot of computing power to crack any certain plain texts. So this is only for the security purposes. So I will require here bcrypt and similarly, if you want to generate any hash password, you have to firstly write await bcrypt dot hash, and this is a sync function, so this is why I have added await keyword here. And this is going to take the simply plain text format text and then salting round. As of now, the more salting round number you give, the more it will take time to hash the password. So for for the security purposes, it is okay to go with 12. So I will just give a 12. You can also store it in the environment variable, but I don't think it's not such necessary. So we have now hashed password, and we're just simply going to just paste it here. And if this went successful, so we have just created only the model. Now it's time for us to save the user. So I'll write here save the user, and I'll write here const result is equal to await new user dot save. So this will save the user, and we are simply going to return with the status of 201. It means success with creation, and simply we are going to return the result with the doc property. So doc defines everything. This is the email, password, and hashed password. So this will return us all our model collection, document. So we don't want our password to be sent as well, so we can simply do this result dot doc is equal doc dot password is equal to undefined. So if we'll send the password, so while returning the responses, we won't get any password. So there's a catch as well here, because we don't want the user to be registered with the same email address, means repetitive email address. So we will check against it. So just go here and we'll write here does user already exist, and we are simply going to make a search user dot find one, and we're going to find on the basis of email ID. So we'll write here email, and if there is some user, we are simply going to return the status of 400 with a JSON response of error that a user with that email already exists, so please try another one. And I'll write here does user already exist dot email, or simply email. Hopefully it shouldn't give any error, so let's just test it out. So I'll go to the Firefox, and I'll go to the register. So we're going to define here method of protocol post, and we'll have here localhost 8000 API / register. If I'll send there, for now, as you can see, we are getting please enter all the fields required. So similarly, we have to give here content type of application JSON, because we are sending the responses in JSON format. I mean, we are going to define our body in JSON format, so we have to define this. You can also use either a postman, but I'll stick with it. So I'll have my curly braces here. We have to define here name. Let's give for now Sajan Korn, and if I'll send, I think I should still get please enter all the required fields. Yes, this is working. Now we'll go to the email. Let's give for now corner787 @.com, and if I'll send here, it's still saying please enter all the required field, because we have to give a password as well. So I'll write here password 123. As you can see, it is saying please enter a valid email address. So let me give my valid email address. If I hit send, I'm still getting 400 error message. So let's see what I have done wrong. So I messed up here, right? Because as you can see we have written here is dot status. This I think I should give here is dot status, right? So let's see if this works or not. So if I'll hit send here, as you can completely see, password must be at least 6 characters long. So let me give here my password Corn123, and if I hit send, as you can see it is saying a user with that email already exists, so please try another one. So basically I have to remove this, drop this database. So I'll go to the Mongo, I'll add here so dbs, I'll use here use contact MERN, and I'll add here so collections, and I will drop this database. So I've dropped this database, and let's see this in action. So if I hit send here, I don't know why it is giving us error. Sorry, I have defined here not operator, so I don't think we don't want this not operator. So let's go to the register API and hit send. As you can see, our user has been created. We have here this name, email, ID. So let's see this in our database. So I'll go to the Mongo, and I'll add here use so dbs, and I'll use the contact MERN. I'll add here so collections, and I'll just simply use db.users.find. And as you can see, our document has this name, email, password, 3 fields here. So now we have successfully managed to register the user. Now it's time for us to manage our login route. So let's get started. So now let's create another route with a post route of login, and this is also going to be of async request, and we'll have a try catch error. We are simply going to copy and paste this 2 fields. So now in this field we are going to have we'll be having 2 fields, email and password. So we'll check this if any of the field is missing, and if there were any field missing, we are simply going to send back the response with a status of 400 and a error message of please enter all the required fields. Similarly, we are going to validate the email in this field in this route as well. So after validating all the fields, now it's time for us to check this against our databases. So I'll add here does user already exist, does user exist, and this is also a asynchronous function, so I have used here, this is going to return as a promise, so I have used here the await keyword. So you will check against the database. So I write user.find one on the basis of ML. If there were no user, then simply we are going to send back response of status 400 with the JSON and a error response of invalid email or password. So but if there were any user present, we will compare the hashed password with the plain text password. So I'll write does password match is equal to await pcrypt.compare, and as you can see it takes 2 parameters arguments, that is the plain text format and then encrypted text. So the plain text will be password, and then encrypted text will be does user exist dot password. And we'll have here checking point. If the password does not match, we are also going to send again back response of status of 400 with the error message of invalid email or password. So you may be wondering, why did I send the response back the same message, invalid email or password? Why can't you just say you have only entered the email wrong? So this is security reason, because we don't want anyone to let's suppose if a hacker is trying to attack our system, so we don't want to give him hint that the email was correct. So it would be a lot of easier for him to get into any accounts, right? So this is why I haven't provided the message that your specific particular field is wrong. So I've provided here or, so it will be a lot difficult for him to get into any accounts, right? So now we have successfully managed to create some checking points for the user. So now it's time for us to generate the token. So I'll write here const payload is equal to, and this is going to have id of does user exist dot id. So this payload will be using the user id as their payload. So now I'll write here const token is equal to, let's require our JWT library, JSON web token jwt.sign, and as you can see it takes a payload and a private secret key. So we will give here our payload, and we have to give here the secret or private key. So in order to give the secret ID, I mean secret keys, we have to first add a package called .env. So now let's define here our .env file. So I'll write here config.env, and I'll have here jwt secret, and I'm just simply going to type gibberish text random. So I have typed the secret key. So we are going to require this environment file. So firstly you have to require the .env, and then we have to configure the path for the our environment file. So this is in the current directory config.env. So we will go to the auth.js file, and we will provide here our secret key. So let it process.n.jwt secret, and then we are also going to set the expires in 1 hour. So this token will expire in 1 hour, and simply we are going to send back the response of status of 200 with a JSON of token. So let's see this, if this works or not. I'll go here and I will go to this login route, and I will just make the post request, and I am going to remove the name. And if I hit send here, as you can see we are getting the token, but if I'll change here my password, as you can see it is saying invalid email or password, and if I'll again do this enter the same password, I am getting the token. Similarly, if I'll remove this, if I'll enter wrong email, let's see this, as you can see it is saying invalid email or password. So we have successfully managed to generate our JSON web token for the login process. So now in the next video we will be starting with the React project. We will be setting up our React project and setting up our authentication, and we'll be managing states of the user as well. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.